Disclaimer. The views, opinions, and statements expressed in this podcast are for informational, artistic, and entertainment purposes only. They do not necessarily reflect the views of the host, guests, or affiliated organizations. This podcast is not intended to provide legal, medical, or professional advice. While we aim to ensure that the information presented is accurate, we make no representations or warranties about the completeness, reliability, or suitability of the content. Any actions taken based on this content are done at the listener's own risk. The creators and contributors of this podcast disclaim all liability for any loss, damage, or harm resulting from the use or reliance on this content. Furthermore, the podcast may include discussions of sensitive topics which some listeners may find distressing. Listener discretion is advised. All music, content, and creative expressions featured in this podcast are intended to uplift marginalized voices and are protected under free speech and artistic expression rights.
AIPAC Zombies, Here we are. Another episode. We are going to be talking about somebody who is possessed by the spirits of Zionism. We'll briefly explain the name again. AIPAC is
the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's the lobby that runs this country, the biggest lobby, and it's a foreign agent registered as an American lobby that spends the most money in American politics in order to serve Israel.
Well put. Yeah, and the AIPAC Zombies of the world are out to serve organizations like AIPAC, out to serve Zionism.
And there's no common sense because they just basically make money out of AIPAC and they just don't listen to you because they just take money from AIPAC. That's why, like, there's nothing goes through when you talk to them as if you're talking to a zombie.
Right. Yeah. There's no making sense of what they're doing. I mean, sometimes it is ideological, like with the subject of today's episode. We are going to talk about someone in the tech industry. Did you know how Zionists kind of run the tech industry in a lot of ways before October 7th, 2023, and all of these techies coming out in support of Israel?
I think funding is a big thing, like Dutch Bank and others. So that's a lot of funding internationally for tech startups. Israel presenting itself as a tech hub with a lot of Facebook, Meta, Google, all of these companies have like big technology engineering hubs in occupied Jaffa, Tel Rabia, or whatever they call it, Tel Aviv right now in Israel. And also I know because most of the CEOs in very prominent like unicorns are Zionists or straight up Israelis, like Brian Chesky from Airbnb, like Zuckerberg, Meta, like Jeff Bezos, who spent $9 billion. I can't remember exactly how many $billion of Amazon money to support Israel. Total Zionist. Elon Musk, total Zionist, who now like doubled down on his Zionism, kind of to redeem himself from spending some network stuff on Palestine. But that's how I know, like, the money, the technology, the funding, and a lot of also nonprofits that works with tech for like leadership stuff. They are mostly Zionists. And I worked in tech for a while. I know I'm a retired drag queen with community organizing perspective. But when I worked in tech, everybody was based in Israel. You can't even say that you're Palestinian in tech. So I worked in that field for over 18 years.
Yeah, interesting. I know that Israel has sort of like tried to portray itself as like Silicon Valley of the Swana region.
Yeah, they even had a project with Jordan of doing like an area between Jordan and occupied Palestine at the Israeli borders to do like a free area for Silicon Valley where they could like
tax-free subsidies.
Yeah, and they could do like some cool shit, spy more on people.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because a lot of the tech that comes out of Israel that we end up using here in the US is like surveillance tech.
Yeah.
Is like weapons,
social media.
there's some social media surveillance of social media too. Bio surveillance tech. Like I know that Leidos is one of the companies that you always see when you're going through TSA at the airport.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Also, all the police equipments. What's the name of the goggles? A lot of like a lot of IDF stuff that they repurpose or they sell to the local police officers. These producing companies, a lot of them are Israelis or made in Israel.
Yeah, actually, so we're in San Francisco right now, but like in Oakland, up until a few years ago, after some protests stopped it, there was a big conference called Urban Shield where police and Israeli police as well, Israeli tech companies would converge to
I don't think there's Israeli police. They're just like, I guess everybody in the Israeli police also acts as like an oppressor to the... I think it was IDF soldiers too.
Yeah. I mean, it was just coming to Oakland to sell their wares. So we're going to be talking about somebody who falls under this umbrella today. Somebody who lives in San Francisco, but was born in Canada back in 1981.
Justin Bieber?
No. I mean, there are a lot of these like sort of right-wing Canadians that, like today's subject, Garry Tan.
Okay.
He like, raised in Canada, on socialized medicine, on, like more subsidies for housing, and somehow that like put a chip on his shoulder. So like Jordan Peterson is like another big right-wing figure. There's so many people that seemingly have a chip on their shoulder from growing up in Canada and are coming down to the US to like spread the hate.
How did the first time you got in like Garry Tan came on your horizon?
The first time that I laid eyes on Garry Tan was when the Silicon Valley Bank bailout happened in the US.
That was very recent.
So yeah, like I think it was probably maybe 2021 or so.
Gosh,
all of these tech companies that banked with Silicon Valley Bank, based here in the Bay Area, got a bailout from the federal government. And the argument from all of these different heads of tech companies, including Garry Tan, was that you're going to kill innovation if the federal government doesn't step in and deal with this banking crisis. And so they did. Like all of these startups and like all these CEOs who were like sort of painting themselves as like these like upstart, scrappy, Silicon Valley types got a big bailout from the government, and Silicon Valley Bank was absorbed by another bank as a result. In any case, it's another case of the rich always somehow finding a way to get a bailout.
Yeah, and you know what? The whole idea about tech startups, especially that I'm a millennial, I grew up with that movie, The Internship, that was made about Google and this whole life. There is no scrappy tech startup people who started from nothing. All of them are like the explanation of nepotism.
Yeah.
Every one of them have been raised in money, probably a millionaire, not a billionaire, although they act as if they are not.
Yeah.
Like none of them grew up in poverty. I don't even know one that has like made it to the unicorns, including, by the way, also like the immigrants. So nobody made it in San Francisco out of like the scrappiness of their soul.
Sure.
It's basically all of them come from privilege, if not like most of them, and it's not all of them.
Yeah, but they try to paint like this heroic narrative where
it's like you're saving the world.
Yeah, they're saving the world from, their garage where they started with like $1 and a dream and somehow like built their way up to become this titan of industry.
And they never started with $1. Like Jeff Bezos started with $1 million from his parents.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's never, it was so annoying that I even believed one day that these people are like regular humans.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very strongly pushed narrative. Like even, you know, like you have multiple movies about Steve Jobs and like how he created something from nothing. The alchemists that are, you know, allegedly running this industry. We know all of this is just not true.
Yeah, and Steve Jobs was a sociopath. He was mentally disturbed. He had highly paranoia. And he comes from money, and he is one of the main reasons Apple to continue to like suck up all the resources in Africa. Like all of these people are horrifying, horrible human beings.
Yeah.
Bill Gates' parents were very famous and prominent lawyers. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like none of them started from nothing.
Yeah. No, we need to get rid of this fake narrative.
Me, he's Canadian. He's not even from the Bay.
He's an immigrant.
How is he like?
He's a migrant from Canada. And he grew up in Winnipeg, Canada.
Yeah. That's bougie.
Yeah, moved here, I believe, in high school.
Yeah.
And went to Stanford.
Of course he did.
Where he was able to get Peter Thiel, you know, the Palantir PayPal mafia dude who...
The Trump gay man.
Yeah, was like, one of the few like gays or out gays that was giving his stamp of approval to Trump during Trump's first presidency. And so Garry Tan was like a big acolyte for Peter Thiel, you know, sucking up to Thiel, got Thiel to come to his computer club at Stanford. And was an early employee at Palantir.
Oh, wow. So they were even colleagues. They were buddies.
I mean, I guess Peter Thiel had graduated and Garry Tan got him to come back to campus to, you know, mentor the youth.
Wow.
And so as a result, you know, he sucked up his way onto the staff at Palantir, and then later joined. He was in a series of startups. He is now a multimillionaire. And he later joined the team of Y Combinator, which is sort of like they call it an incubator. Do you know of Y Combinator?
No, but I know about incubators. I'm laughing because white. Like, why would you call it this?
It's just Y.
Oh,
I don't know why the Y. Just Y.
Okay, cool.
Just Y. And this is like an incubator where what's his name? Sam Altman of OpenAI, another Zionist.
Oh, that's mega Zionist.
Yeah. Yes. Used to run Y Combinator, this incubator.
Yeah, Altman needs to have an episode by themselves.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So he, his thing is like, if you know anything about Garry Tan, one thing you might know is how he was like maybe the most prolific person to block other people on Twitter.
Yeah.
So
it's so pity.
Yeah, like people would like I think you can still do it, even though Twitter dropped the ability for people to block people, but I think you might still be able to do it if you buy a subscription.
Yeah. Or you're friends with Elon Musk, which he might be. Yeah.
I mean, he is like him and Elon Musk will communicate back and forth sometimes on Twitter.
Yeah.
And they got together in trying to oust successfully one of the local politicians, Dean Preston.
Yeah.
And installed their favored candidate, who is another person from the tech industry, Bilal Mahmoud, here in San Francisco.
Mega Zionist.
Yeah.
At least by funding. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, somebody who blocks everybody on Twitter, we can assume that this is somebody who just doesn't like to hear differing opinions from his own and believes that his is the only kind of thought that matters.
Yeah, because he thinks he's smarter than everyone else. Like, it's a Stanford vibe.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like, I wasn't aware of his Zionism though until I saw that he had popped up. There's a website called genocide.vc.
Oh, he's the one behind it?
No, okay. He's one of the targets of it. So genocide.vc is people can go to, and it lists some of the people in the tech industry who have made it clear that they are Zionist. And so Garry Tan is one of the many VCs, unfortunately, that is up there.
And can you, for somebody who doesn't know tech as much, because we live in the city.
Oh, yeah. Venture capital.
VC. Yeah.
Venture capitalist, basically an investor for the tech industry.
Yeah. Somebody with a lot of money that would invest in companies like Garry Tan. So Garry Tan is basically one of those mega rich people that we have in San Francisco.
Yeah. Driven by greed, generally. And also, interested in politics and interested in furthering their companies, furthering their ideology, which tends to be like a libertarian, if not an anarcho-capitalist sort of ideology. And, he has done things like, online called the Intifada, akin to the final solution, making these like wildly exaggerated.
Oh, like kill them all, like genocidal statements?
He called the Intifada, like anyone who uses that terminology, basically equating them with Nazis.
Wow. Yeah.
Like these like little logical falsehoods, I guess you could say.
So basically Intifada is something that used as like, the lawful resistance and uprising against colonization in general. And Palestinians, like civilians, uprise twice against like Israeli occupation, and also that's for somebody who doesn't know what Intifada is.
No, this is good.
Yeah. But I think that like, I don't really know. Is it just because he like sucks on tech money? I mean, he's rich. Is it just because he's like hanging out a lot of Zion? Like, why do you think he's kind of a pro-Israel dick?
I mean, I think that partially he's influenced by the people who are around him and the people who he wants to be like the Peter Thiels of the world, inviting him to his computer club. Obviously, this is somebody who he thought of as like an icon.
Yeah.
And
he also invests in a lot of Israeli startups, Garry Tan.
Oh, okay. And I was also aware of, I saw like in the news when in October 2023, he was due to appear at a tech conference in Portugal, and in solidarity with Israel and, quote unquote, against Hamas, he decided to pull out of that conference.
Because Portugal basically, after the UN resolution passed that Israel is a war criminal apartheid state too, the UN said that it's an apartheid state and they're committing genocide, and they asked for Netanyahu, who's the prime minister of Israel, to show up in front of the biggest court in the world as a war criminal. Portugal answered as part of the people who signed up on the agreement of arresting Netanyahu if he shows up in their country. They also have been asked to revoke Israeli presence in some of the conferences they have, just due to the genocidal status, similar to what they did to Russia when Russia invaded Ukraine.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of a context of why Portugal even like sort of...
Well, this is even before that, because that happened more recently, I believe. This was back in October 2023.
Oh, 2023. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so this was even before all of that. And
because Portugal recently, like the ship and the conference that was there, that they kicked out the Israeli ambassador from, and they told them that they're not welcome, or the Israeli whatever representative.
Which I love to hear. I love to hear that people are actually instituting these international laws, and calling for, Bibi and Gallant.
So why did he not show up like in that conference? Although nothing was going on. They didn't even say bad things about Israel at that time.
He and some other Zionists canceled their appearance, and it was because the conference had like put out a statement that the
genocide is wrong.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, something like as light as that provoked, a negative sort of response from Garry Tan. He has also, like, another thing that people might know about him is, like, he's very flippant with his language online, even though he clearly aspires to become like a sort of political figure of some sort. He's funding a lot of the like recalls here locally, like of the school board, and trying to push things in a more conservative direction, in a more techno-libertarian direction.
So he's actually supporting conservative candidates and conservative needs. It's not just that he's like one of these liberals who's happened to be a Zionist. He's actually like conservative when it comes to politics.
Yeah, I mean, I think has identified
Canadian
more with like the Democratic Party, but as we know, like that doesn't mean anything necessarily, especially in a place like San Francisco, where in order to win a political race, you join the Democratic Party, because that's the only party that has been elected generally
and
here in
a
many
very
years.
good reputation that we're a liberal city, but we're not.
Right. Yeah. I mean, people see like the blue. They see the Democrat. What is it? The donkey or whatever, and they presume that because of that there are, people say it's like the fiscal conservative, socially liberal, like on economic issues people are conservative, but at least on rather social issues like gay marriage or whatever, they're more liberal. But that's not even who we're talking about, because Garry Tan has not only like used like very embarrassingly like called on Tupac lyrics to call for the death of progressives, which is very very sad.
Tupac?
No, he used some lyrics from a Tupac song to call for the death of these progressive politicians locally in a very corny way. I mean, he does seem like one of those Asians who like is trying to glom onto Black culture to make himself feel, I guess, cooler. I mean, he's clearly somebody who wants affirmation from people in the tech industry like Peter Thiel.
Yeah, they're all rap probably.
So yeah, after he called for the death of these progressives and had to like delete that tweet and put out a statement, he used his friend at the New York Times, this person named Heather Knight, gave him a profile and painted him as like a misunderstood tech CEO who got canceled by the woke mob, which of course he loved, because all these people on the right love that kind of attention.
Yeah.
They love to be adored by the right. They love to be
people
seen as like they're just misunderstood. Yeah. They're a victim of the woke mob.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's why I'm always like a little bit like, we got to be selective with who we're talking about here, in terms of some of these people, they're just looking for attention.
Yeah.
And Garry qualifies somewhat as that, but he is also a multimillionaire who has made a lot of moves, like politically funding all of these campaigns. It's clear he also wants to exert control over the rest of us. So I think that makes him worthy of doing an episode about. He's not just in it for the fame and the attention.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see. Another thing that I think is interesting to talk about Garry is how his wife started the first Asian American publishing house. And also he's been featured commonly in Asian American Foundation events. And the Asian American Foundation is an organization that over on the other podcast where you could find me and Mama Ganoush, San Francisco, we've talked about how the Asian American Foundation, founded in 2021, $1 billion nonprofit, is this sort of anti-Asian hate organization that was built by Zionists.
The Stop Asian Hate?
It's called the Asian American Foundation, and it came out at the same time as the Stop Asian Hate movement started. There's a few different organizations. There's one called Stop AAPI Hate. That's another like actual nonprofit. This is another actual, like, it's a foundation. They support, Asian representation in the media and also in police departments, in the FBI. They want more representation of Asians, and they think that this is going to tamper down, anti-Asian violence. But again, so this is an organization, $1 billion organization, that was founded in part by Jonathan Greenblatt of the Anti-Defamation League, an AIPAC-aligned organization that we know to be just insidiously Zionist.
So hold on. So Asian American Foundation is founded by Garry Tan and a bunch of people, including his wife.
He's aligned. He appears at their he wasn't like a co-founder, but he appears at their events all the time.
Got it. But that's the organization that basically is highly funded by the Anti-Defamation League and supported and sort of collaboration between them and basically the AIPAC. Can you, for somebody who doesn't know what ADL or the Anti-Defamation League, can you give them like the rundown of what ADL is?
Yeah, the ADL started as an organization that was out to combat anti-Semitism.
Which, in reality, what do they do?
But now, it's kind of one of these organizations that now is just a pro-Israel hive. Yeah. They attempt to do similar things to what AIPAC does, like, pushing for pro-Israel politicians, for pro-Israel policies.
And also they're behind the militarization and training of cops with Israeli IRAF. So that's another thing that, remember the urban shield that you talked about? Yeah. ADL was a big part of like what's behind it in terms of like weaponry buying, cross-militarization. And this is an organization that's been around since the 40s, I think, or the 50s, like since the beginning of the colonial project of Israel, to make sure that the U.S. continue to support this. So it's a very like Zionist pro-Israel royalty. And they were like a big part of actually the continuation of the support of the expansion of colonization of Israel because of their impact on American politics. If you think about it, like the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the ADL has always been active in the U.S.
always politics. In Congress, like always like speaking out on behalf of
Israel.
Yeah. And as a result of people being like, okay, why is this organization, the Asian American Foundation, why is it founded? And why is there this like random white dude on the board, meaning Jonathan Greenblatt of the ADL?
Yeah.
Was on the board of the Asian American Foundation, and they're like, why you couldn't find an Asian. And so as a result of protests, as a result of like online petitions, Jonathan Greenblatt was let go from the board or resigned, stepped down from the board of the Asian American Foundation. But unfortunately, they just replaced him with another Zionist who happens to be Asian.
And what's her name, the new one?
Geraldine Acuna Sunshine, I believe. Yeah. So just one to watch out for. She's a huge Zionist. And seemingly a friend of Jonathan Greenblatt. Not seemingly, she is. And it's
like stereotypical like identity politics.
Totally.
It's stereotypical like, I'm gonna get you the Asian face that will continue serving Israeli interests above the American interest and the Asian American interest.
Yeah, I feel like it's really condescending. Like it's to think that it's that easy, that all of these people who were like, we don't want Jonathan Greenblatt on your board because this dude is an avowed Zionist.
Yeah.
To replace him with somebody who is basically the same thing, just like with an Asian face, it's super condescending to like think that I mean it's ridiculous.
And let me answer. Can I just ask you like a random question? Outside of a Palestinian context and global solidarity and land back, for that's why we stand like against Israeli interests as a genocidal state, all of that stuff, and it's against even the American people interest. Is Israel actually good for Asian Americans? Like supporting Israel is like a good thing?
Yeah, I mean, not that I know. I mean, I think it undermines all of our, like everyone who is in any way marginalized. The U.S. like promoting fucking rogue state like Israel is a problem because the way that the genocides in general, like it's genocide is typically used against marginalized people and by the powerful to to wipe out marginalized populations.
So why do you think the ADL is after like the Asian American? You know what I mean? Like why do they want to get that influence in the Asian American population? I'm curious. What do you think? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think it's for the same reason that
like pinkwashing, for example.
Yeah, I mean, it's like there actually is some writing on this issue, and I forget the name of. We can like in the show notes like put some resources on this, but there's some writing about how this is sort of yellow washing. So
that's really racist to say.
It's
literally people say yellow washing. Is that a term?
By an Asian American.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah, by an Asian American academic who came up with this term to describe how, in the same way that pinkwashing uses like the legacy of queer movements to cover up Israeli crimes.
But it's interesting, right? Because of the it's a lot of things about how Israel had an influence in the Vietnam War. Like random facts about how the impact of Israel was negative on like a lot of like genocides that the US was involved in.
Yeah.
Including Vietnam. Yeah. And I didn't even realize that, but it's interesting to I never made that connection until Garry Tan involvement with Zionism, and my understanding the Asian American Foundation is basically made to support like Zionist ideology within Asian American communities and attach both cases.
Yeah.
But it's really scary for me.
Yeah, just to know it's pretty insidious. Like it just shows you how intentional that the Zionists are being with how they promote Israel's existence and Israel's continued funding and support from the higher ups in society in the US.
And I feel like also it has a lot of spillover on other things like pinkwashing, which is using like, gay and queer matters and rights as a way to falsely present Israel as like an oasis for all of that, and Palestinians are just savages. But undermines like what they're doing in the criminalization, the criminal acts that they're doing is a RuPaul Drag Race, where the Asian American Foundation was, I think, one of the nonprofits that was the Asian queen. What was her name?
God, I don't even remember.
Oh my God, what was her name?
Yeah, I mean,
I love you, sis, but I can't remember the name right now.
Yeah, it's the way that they have been able to put themselves out there as just associating themselves with other sort of
she's like
marginalized populations.
But also she's a mega influencer on TikTok.
Right.
She has millions of followers, and now she is promoting the Asian American Foundation as a good thing.
Right.
And I can't remember her name.
Yeah, I guess she's not very good.
Sorry. No, she's actually fabulous. Like that's why they choose the best. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh. Well, like we said, we were talking about during the Andy Cohen episode that people can go back and listen to. The Andy Cohen was last summer, like at this Influencers for Israel event. It's a very concerted effort to use cultural clout of these influencers to support Israel. However, sort of like, it's almost like subliminal. It's not like that the drag queen that we were talking about like was out there with an Israeli flag, but there's a connection there, unfortunately, due to the fact that, you know, she was raising money for the Asian American Foundation.
I have to find her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oh, all good.
Okay. I have to find her.
Well, while you find her, we like the last thing that I would say about Garry Tan is that like for him to support
Plastic Tiara.
Yes. Thank you.
Plastic Mama, the Asian American Foundation, they're a bunch of Zionists, and you need to stop working with them.
Yeah.
And RuPaul. I mean, RuPaul is we have to have a whole episode about RuPaul Drag Show and their, obsession by having parties in Tel Aviv and Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
So
thank you. That was good to know.
Yeah.
I was just curious, like, why the fuck? Why are you going after Asian American populations? Like, what it's in it for you? Is it like, you know, because this is like one of the biggest like vote population that's like increasing?
I mean, for the same reason, that like when there were like some BLM chapters that like were specifically that in their like mission statements, they talk about like solidarity with Palestine. And very quickly, like you could see that there were other BLM chapters who, after that, were coming out with mission statements where Palestine was removed, you know, or it wasn't part of the equation. So they have, you know, done a good job with their PR in terms of like looking for what's the movement of the moment, and Asian American like anti-Asian violence like was clearly like that was a moment in 2021.
And what is the negative side effect that something like this that they're doing would be on actually like Asian like safety, like Asian American safety, or Asian population, or people from Asia safety? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean,
like, what do you think the negative effect is?
I mean, right now, you could talk about it in very material terms, because like I know right now in Israel, the like some of the factory farms are using low wage Asian workers to go out and work the fields that are like basically a battleground, like a very, you know, dangerous place to go and continue to farm food for Israelis, and we're subsidizing that basically. That's a material way, and
we're selling it through the Stop Asian Hate, like solidarity, I guess, with genocidal Israelis.
Yeah, you could say we're laundering it through like like covering it up. Like, don't look over here about how we're using like low wage migrants from Asia to do our, you know, lowest wage jobs.
That's colonization.
Yeah,
they did that.
Plain and simple. Yeah,
they did that before, and they're doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
That's such an enlightening thing. I mean, Toshi, honestly, I learned so much about Garry Tan, the ADL, from your show, the San Francisco, and also from the Phoenix Project.
Yeah,
that's another resource that I'm sure we're gonna put it in.
Yeah. People can check out the Phoenix Project. They're like sort of looking at the funding ties of local and billionaires in SF and beyond who are funding a lot of the Silicon Valley
He's not even from
politicians.
San Francisco. I feel so weird.
I don't know why you assumed. Once. Yeah,
but also like the way he presents himself. He didn't say it verbally, but the way I think he thinks about himself, or maybe he presents himself.
Oh, absolutely.
As it's like coming from a struggling family. So that's what my brain put him, which also might tell you something about maybe how fucked up my brain could be. But you know what I mean? But that's like,
he's fooled a lot of people, and all of these tech CEOs fool a lot of people with their sort of like, oh, I am a victim of the woke mob, in the way that you hear Elon Musk saying those same words, you know. Cool. So if you have any additional like, Garry Tan backgrounders that we should know, please let us know.
If you're an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or
hit us up, check out our social media. We'll have all of this listed in the show notes. You can also hit us up if you have ideas for somebody that we should cover.